Okay, so running our Vue.js in neoan3 is basically what we're going to look at today, and we're going to jump into a lot of reasons why you want to develop like that. But I think it's actually easiest to explain when we have a deeper dive into it. So the first thing that we're going to set up is basically our environment. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a neoan3 command, and if you don't have that, by the way, then install that via npm. So I need a neoan3 new app video. I'm doing that because, as you can see, I'm in my localhost in the video folder that I just created. This is basically what we see right now. So there's nothing in there. That's why this is forbidden from the Apache I installed. But we can run this with a PHP command as well if we want to. So let's do that one. Okay. So that should be there now. Okay. So here, basically, if we reload that, we should get on the, yep, so that's all working. And so the first thing we're going to do is basically create a new, well, let's start with a new frame. Or actually, let's start with installing Vue, right? So that is, I think it's just Vue.js. Let me just try it out. Install Vue.js. Okay, that's not how it's called anymore. Oh, we've got now a version 3. Look at that. That is interesting. Actually, look into what we just downloaded here. Let me, apparently something just changed on me. That is very interesting. So we're still in version 2. And with the, where's my installation? Did you change that too? Installations up here. Okay, got it. CDN, no, we want to have npm install Vue. Okay, it's just Vue. Okay, got it. Actually, in that case, let's just get rid of this one. That's gonna fuck up our composer, our package lock. Not the most elegant way to do that at all. Didn't add that here. Interesting. Okay, got it. Got it. So let's not do that right now and just say npm install Vue. Okay. So we have that solved. Sorry about that little detour. It kind of confused me here. I know that they're working on. Yeah, okay, do that. So you stop bothering me. What is deprecated? npm cline.js. Okay, should be fine. So so we have that covered. So now we basically go back to and say, like, okay, let's install the first frame, right? So let's go back to our terminal and say neoan3 new frame, and we're going to call this Vue PHP. Okay, now that created a new frame. So what we're going to do is in this demo component, or actually let's create a new component quickly as well. new component. Let's call it home. Oops. neoan3 new component home. And that's going to be a route component. Yes. With a view, sure. Yes, and the frame I'm going to use is view PHP. Okay. So, and then we go into the default, and right now we're going to say, please, when I do this, load the home. Okay. So now we basically started a blank slate. Now let's jump back into the frame. So this is pretty much empty right now. And so what we want to achieve? The first thing we want to achieve is naturally to load in the view. So since that's going to happen in this application every time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to overwrite the construct of the core. And so you stop bitching, we're still going to do the regular. Okay. And then basically say, well, let's actually account for development here quickly. So if server HTTP host is localhost, then use, oops, actually I'm not sure where that would be, but what we need is then we do this include JS, and that would be base node modules view. Is that dist? I forgot. Dist. Yeah. So that's it, right? This is, yeah, okay. So what we're going to do is so if it's localhost, we want to have the Vue.js exactly. And else, so how Vue does it, I mean, I'm pretty sure you already know this. How Vue does it is that if you use the minified version, it will not give you the development environment, and if you use the Vue.js, it will basically give you the development environment. Let's basically verify that. Well, right now we haven't integrated it, so let's actually wait with that. What we are going to do is probably also hook into the output function, and say, okay, that we don't even need. Actually, that we do need, but we need that afterwards. So before that happens, before we pass it to the actual output, we're going to actually just do the following now and say we're directly writing to the JS string. That's a little bit quick and dirty, but it should work here. In Vue, and then we simply say element root. Yeah, that should do. Correct. Okay, and since that's not gonna fly, I need to basically create this quickly and say the main is, and then here we basically just do a regular diff. This is a little bit ugly here how I do it, but that should work either way. And just say root here. Yes. That'll be fine. What's important though is what we render in there. So we will also do here this main. Okay. That should do for now. So why am I doing this? Well, I'm overriding basically the main container, and I generate this main container for the application. So what I have now is, if I basically inspect the element, you can see that better. Yes, so here I now have the ID root where the actual content is inside. And as you can also see, view is not detected. Why not? Let's see, why not? Localhost videos, note modules, view dist. I forgot the dist. Okay. Okay, view dist. View dist actually looks good. Why not? And this works fine. What am I missing? What am I missing? So this is overriding the output. It does that fine. It includes this. Oh, it's the custom. Oh, okay. Got it. Those typos. Perfect. Okay, so sorry about that. So what have we done? Okay, so now this basically runs in a Vue.js container. Now there are a couple of things that basically we still want to set up in order for this to work nicely. So what is the next thing I want to do? Well, so let's basically, since we are going to write components mainly, let's do view components as something that we have in the frame. And then in those components, what we're going to do is we're going to pass in an array of components and parameters. Right, and they can be empty, of course. So let's quickly ensure that param space exists, because that's something that we actually need always for routing purposes. And let's then say, okay, so where would that leave? And this is basically now how we're going to work on it. So we're basically going to say we take the path of the application and say we're going to write those as components. So in component, and then, oh, and that depends. So here already we're in the for each. So for each components as component, and this one we're going to move up here and say, okay, as component, so that's going to be a name, and it's going to be directory separator, but I'm already sure that this will only run on Linux, and then component again, and then we need to declare this our custom element basically. Yeah, that's basically it. Okay, so let's see if that exists. So that will be path, and and then it has the used extension, it'll be the view extension, so HTML in our case. Okay, then we're gonna write to save space. That's just this footer. Yeah, this footer is good. Let's write to this footer and basically say we're going to append a template string here. It's going to be the element itself. Sorry, component. Correct. And we are going to place the this is basically the file content, because we need to render that with the params. So the file content of path, this view extension, and pass in the params. Yep. So that's what we're going to do. Nope, we're still not done. And we still need to close this again. The template. Okay. So this will make more sense in a second. So what have I done here? Let me actually quickly maximize this. So we basically want to use the custom element, and we assume that out of the view extension we're going to generate a template, and then naturally from the JS it shouldn't be a problem, but nonetheless we're going to do that too and say okay. So the actual JS file we're going to place with if file exists, and we're going to say path. And it's always JS, isn't it? Yeah, it's always JS. And we're going to amend that to the JS stream. This JS is then file get content. No, this could also basically have params that I want to pass in this file content. And then same here, right, path JS, and pass in params. Okay. Do I want to have a style for that? I don't know that yet, but just to be clear, let's also do a, this could be a puck or whatever, style extension, yep. Yep. Okay. Got it. And at the end, because we want this to run through, we're going to return this. Okay. So that should enable us basically to be all set up. So this little piece of code would now allow us to use view components and load the components that we're going to build into the structure of neoan3. Let's try this out quickly and say okay. I mean, first of all, let's see if this throws any kind of errors, but that should be fine. So what we probably want to do at this point is we want to look, we're done here, we want to look at components only now. So we have our home, and so this uses the Unicore at the moment, which is not necessary at all. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to utilize a little bit of the template functionality of the CLI tool. So I'm going to create a new folder here that needs to be called _template. And in this _template, we're going to create first our JavaScript file, and that is going to be called ce.js. So that is going to be the template for our components, so that's probably going to be called view component, and then in here we're going to pass name, and that's possibly where we end. This is all we need for now, isn't it? And you know what we're going to do though? Here we can already expect that we already know where the template is always going to be. And that's going to be a document get element by ID, and that's going to be name. Right. Okay. And I suppose we should have, and that's a little bit, we don't need that. We don't need that, but I don't know yet if we need that. But let's just assume that we also want to have a C, and that should be this file. And I'm not sure if we need any of this right now, so I'm gonna simply do this for now. Okay, so that should generate our component. Let's basically try this out now. And so that basically means from now on I should be able to say neoan3 new component, I don't know, let's say test. Yeah, why not? Okay, so now if I go to custom element, it's using the HTML template and the JS template. So in my components I now have test, and as you can see I have a view component test that reads from test, right? So if we want to use that at home, there are two things that we want to do. So first of all, in the home view, let's basically try that one out and say, okay, this is our test element, and we also want to load this in, and I don't like the Unicode structure for that here. Yeah, well, we can simply do this, but what would be nicer if you want to work with that? Actually, you know what we're going to do instead? We're going to create a PHP file that we're going to call route. Yes, that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say namespace is neoan3 components, and we're going to use, and that's always going to be hard for us, the neoan3 frame what did we call it? View PHP. Wonderful. This is how we call it. View PHP. Fantastic. And then say, okay, class, and here we need the placeholder. Let's say name for now. Yeah. Okay. Oops. Extends, and this will probably throw errors right now, but that doesn't matter. Extends view PHP. Super confused with what I'm doing here, but it'll work, believe me. And here we're going to simply say, okay, function init, and this function will have this. Then we're going to say hook, and then we're going to say main, and then we have a little bit of a problem here with the naming. That's something we need to fix probably after generation, and then we're going to use the output. And so what we're going to do here is that we're going to create a private that we're going to call view component or used loaded components. That's what we're going to do. Yep. That's what we're going to do. And then here we basically simply say, and how did we call this function again? View components. Okay. So you're going to say view components and pass in this loaded components. Okay. Okay. Now with that, I'm pretty sure that seems a little bit confusing to you, but what we're going to do is the following. We are going to use this template. Let's see if that works. So let's actually get rid of our home again, completely. And instead say, okay, we're going to do this again. And say neoan3, new component, home. So now we're going to take the route component. We are going to create a view, and we are going to use a frame. The frame is going to be view PHP. Okay, so what we should have now is in our home, wherever it is here. So that looks, let me actually see. And this is something that I need to account for eventually. Now let's try it out. So if we now here say, what did we call it? Test. And in the home view, we are going to say test. Then we should be able, failed to non-component template or render function not defined. And test root. Okay, so apparently not. Let's see what the issue is. So in the component test, we have test, right? That should be here. And it also is the template. Am I wrong with that? Because this is not okay. Okay. Sure. Let's make this easier. Okay. Let's actually also change that in the template. Okay, we got that one, and then in our route, we want to have a little bit of nicer look and feel here, and say, do it like this. Okay. Fair enough. So now we can basically close everything but home. Okay. So what do we see here? And this is basically already all the setup that we require. So from now on, I can basically include in any rendering I need an array of, and we can basically see that in the home controller. I basically just tell the endpoint what components to load. All right, and I could lift this up and say there are a couple components that I always need, mixins and whatever. But just so we get this started. So this frame basically now operates on the premises that and as you can see, I don't have to do anything with that anymore. So this is something that will be auto-generated, and here's basically where I create my content. Now, the huge advantage of that is, of course, that the not only does the endpoint only load what it requires, so it's pretty performant and fast. I mean, you can basically see how fast it is by looking at it. It basically says in no time whatsoever. But more importantly, we have the ability now to make this dynamic. So I directly work on the test component now, and say, okay, so let's do something here. Let's just say, okay, we have, and then you just work in view. You know what I mean? We have got some data. Let's just say variable, and it is Stefan. And in my test HTML, I can then say, okay, this is variable, and this should, oh, wonderful. And this doesn't work as I expected it to. Data option should be a function. Oh, sorry. Of course, you also still need to be able to write view, but that's a different story. And so now I can basically use that component, and it's very easy for me to generate those and work on those and maintain those and so on. And they're reusable, and the setup, to make that work in Neon is pretty easy. So from now on, basically, I have this container where I can punch all kind of stuff in. Let's actually try something out so we understand what the context is. So we say context is, and we already know that there's always base. And here I basically say, do something like this, and say run from context. And you can then basically see that it understands this perfectly. So this already gets rendered accordingly. So if I look up basically what the view component test is, if I find my network somewhere, I've written that I've actually written that here. So why doesn't this work? Okay, here. See, like as soon as it's rendered and basically served, it's like a static value is already placed in, because that's what we did with the in the frame, right? So just to reiterate what we just done here quickly is we're writing those templates. We're going to use the params. We're going to make sure that at least base always exists. But of course, what I can do now is I can go back to the backend and in my home and say, well, so what I'm also going to take care of here is something else. So here, let me define those and say parameters. And I have, for example, stuff that test uses, where say like component is, and then in that case, let's just say home. I'm going to pass those parameters in. And then let's just assume that my test does something along the line of component. Component. Okay, got it. And component, right? And here again, I say, all right, and execute it through, and here say component, and you can basically see that the variables are passed in, and those could be dynamic and so on. I'm just going to try to make a case here. Have particular forms of logic. Now, I can, of course, in my frame, so this is all I need. I mean, from now on, basically, I can add all kinds of things. So let's just say I'm using Axios. I can basically, here in the frame, create my general setup, and basically now do stuff like that from here as well, right? And say this, and then create my view components, and then just put in what I need. My mixins, whatever, or maybe I need different forms. I need view directives or whatever. I mean, you can fly around with that as much as you want to, and basically start like creating my logic for the application, and that's a pretty handy way of handling it, and it doesn't require a server whatsoever. So I mean, I'm running this in localhost right now. But there's actually no reason. I mean, what I can also do is the PHP server and going to say localhost 8080, and we're going to do where do I actually do this again? Because I never do this, and that would probably be here, right? Yes, and that would be in neoan3.php. Okay, and then as you can see, I don't even need any kind of Apache running or whatever. I can do all of this directly from my PHP executable in with my neoan3. So that is pretty awesome. Let's combine those quickly and see how that works with inheritance and so on. So let me create one other thing here, and I'm just going to open up a new one and say, okay, neoan3, new component, subtest, and that's going to be a custom element. And so what I want to do is I go to components, go to my subtest. I see that here's my subtest, and I also see that this is my, well, there's everything here I could possibly need, I suppose. So just so you see how that works, so what I'm going to do is that in test, I am also going to include subtest, right? Oops. And that is all I need from here. The only thing I need to make sure is that this exists, of course, for the for this case. So in my home, I'm going to say, okay, this is where I'm going to use it. Let me actually add something here and say subtest. Is this how it's actually not sure if that's going to work? Yeah, it's going to work fine. Oh, and my mouse just hung up. And then basically this renders accordingly. So we accounted for the view. Oh, sorry. The in this subtest we accounted for the view, and what we've also written is we are accounting for styles, right? So what I could also do is to say, like, okay, I have a subtest CSS file, and here I'm going to do color me, and it's going to be color red. Just going to hard code this right now. I could, by the way, pass in parameters here as well, but for now, actually that's even available. You know what? Let's do that in the parameters component home, and let's just say color, and we're going to say blue. Okay, so what I can do here now, if I wanted to, my IDE will scream at me, but I'm going to say this one. And now subtest has that available, and color me is the class. So in the subtest HTML, I can basically here say color me, right? So what would happen then is nothing. Is nothing. Expected got localhost 8080. Let's see what the problem is. Color blue. This looks good. Okay, this is not in a style. I understand. And it's in JS. Okay, we are doing something very wrong here with the style. Aha. Got it. Okay. So what we've done now in home, this is apparently blue, right? So now basically this is also automatically loaded, so I can now do like very variable things and basically say like in home I'm going to pass in a different parameter than I do in a different instance. So let's just say you're building something that can now be divided quite intelligently, because often you have the same functionality, but you, for example, reuse this module and the view is completely different because you have a Bulma front end on one project and you have a I don't know, a Tailwind front end on a different project, but nonetheless something like your view login would be exactly the same functionality device, the same backend and so on. So you can basically say, okay, yes, depending on a project, a component, whatever, an endpoint, I pass in different parameters to account for variations. And if you find, I know this is like full of weird examples that I made here, but maybe it helps you to understand what capabilities you have there, while being under full control of the whole serving mechanism. So as you can see, I don't need to bundle, I don't need to build. I mean, if I'm completely done with this from a development standpoint, I'm probably just going to run, you know, neoan3's cache mechanism, and then this will be faster than you can ever imagine. So that's this. So you will find a little link to a article about this where I've written this out. This time I will not include a gist of it because it doesn't make any kind of sense. We touched on a couple of interesting points, I think. So we used the template functionality of the CLI tool, and we basically modified with a frame, modified the base functionality of the output in a way that is very suitable for us to use Vue.js. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry that I was a little bit experimenting. I did this live, and probably there are 1,000 things that I will later notice that I should do differently. But I just want to have a quick and dirty solution to tell you or to show you that within a couple of minutes you can basically tweak neoan3 to be perfectly suitable for whatever your needs may be. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you soon.